And I was sitting on the floor and I was like, what the heck is going on? What is going on here? So my mind was a bit disturbed by this whole scenery, but my heart was, the whole time was saying, yes, yes, just sit down, just be. Hare Krishna, my name is Karuna Sindhu. I'm from Berlin, Germany, and I was asked by these two gentlemen here to introduce myself and tell some stories about my life and how I joined Krishna Consciousness and how I came in contact with Krishna Consciousness. And before I do that, I would like to describe how I was brought up and what is my background and what I did before I actually came in contact with this supreme knowledge. I was born in '75, so I grew up in East Germany, which is a socialist country, by the way, and so I was pretty much brainwashed into atheism, that, if you can say like that. In kindergarten it started already, then in school. They're pretty much focused on you had to function in a society which is not geared towards a God consciousness, which is not geared towards higher principles. You just have to function and do your part, get your money, go home, don't ask any questions, just follow basically, and don't think for yourself, and don't speak and don't think about higher subjects. So that's the place I was born in, '75, and then I was 16 when the war broke down, because Germany was divided back then, and when I was 16 the war broke down. And so we moved from socialism to capitalism, and so at that time I moved basically from one social system to another social system, and it was kind of challenging for me also, because you were brought up with certain principles, but then they are broken down basically, and you move into another social system which also doesn't have really the answers to life. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that was the years of my life where I kind of really struggled to find my place in this world. And also I remember, because if you look at it, it is the Second World War in Germany basically broke down everything, all the connections to the previous history. So I didn't really grew up with something substantial, like with some culture, because the GDR was, was 40 years old, something like that at that time. So I didn't have much connection to a deeper culture, and I didn't have much connection to higher knowledge. And so I was kind of desperate to find out what is life is all about and what to do. And there was one particular point in my life where I asked myself these questions very deeply, and that was when my mother died. She died when I was 24, and I've been very close to her in the last hours, and basically I've seen what happens when someone dies. And at that moment I asked myself, all right, okay, this is going to happen to me, but what is happening here? What is happening after that? What is death? What I'm supposed to do? I'm just supposed to function here in this society, but this is a very crucial point in life, and no one gives me any idea or answers. So I started to inquiring more internally into what life is all about, and that brought me to the scene of yoga. So I started to inquire into yoga, and also did some courses in yoga, teacher trainings in yoga. Kundalini yoga was my part, which I choose, and I got like 2 years education in that. So I started get a bit more understanding of what subtleties are around the body and in this universe are existing. And in the end of this yoga course, I had this deep desire. I wanted to go to India. Somehow or other, I always felt that I find some answers in India. So I asked my yoga teacher if he could please give me some books so I can prepare myself for India a little bit. So I know something about the culture and the land, country, and because actually at that point I had the idea I want to go with the bicycle. I wanted to kind of take my bicycle and ride over to India. So I wanted to prepare myself, and he gave me Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. He said, like, maybe you find something in there. So I had this Bhagavad Gita in hand and started reading it. First chapter, I didn't understand anything. There's so many words, so many names, and in a language I didn't really understand, but I find it very attractive. So I read it, maybe for a month or two. I read this Bhagavad Gita, and then I finished actually my education as a yoga teacher, and I went home. And it was a year later when I found this book again, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. I found it again in a Christmas market in Germany. They have Christmas markets and they sell all kinds of things. And there was one Indian guy. He had a stall there, and he sold all kinds of Indian incense and cloths and books. And Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita was there again. So I remembered the cover. I was like, oh yeah, I know that book. That was very interesting. So I picked it up and I asked him, how much is it? He said, like 10 euros. I said, all right, no problem, see, 10 euros. And I put it in my bag and I walked home, and I remember very vividly how I was feeling when I was walking home, because I knew this is going to change my life. So I knew it. So I went home. I was so excited to open it up, and I was looking through the pages, and there was the Sanskrit, and there was Prabhupada in the back, and this whole book was just so mystical. I was so attracted to this. So I was actually, with that book, I was for 1 year on my own. I had no idea I didn't even know there was a movement. I didn't know there's ISKCON. I didn't know. I just knew that Bhagavad Gita, and I knew Prabhupada in the back. And I thought always to myself, Prabhupada is like a saint. He comes to the West, or he just translated some books, and it's very interesting. But I didn't know what his mission was. And so I read through the Bhagavad Gita. It took me a year or something like that, because I was very good with reading at that time. And I remember when I finished the book, the thing which stuck in my mind was, you should chant Hare Krishna. Because he mentioned this a couple of times, and this is what just stuck into my mind. So I went to this Indian guy who had the stall in the Christmas market, because he had a shop there as well, in the town I was living. And I picked up a few other books. There was another book, Signs of Self-Realization. So I picked up this book and I started to read it. And in the back of this book, in the German version, you find a description how you set up an altar on your home. So I started doing this. So I set up a little altar, a picture of Krishna, Prabhupada, and some incense, how to offer this, and then so you need to chant Hare Krishna. And in that book, it is also described how you string yourself a japa yourself. So I went back to this Indian guy, and I got some pearls and some string, and so I made my own japa beads, So I kind of 108. So I put them there. I made nuts like this, So I got together 108 beads on the japa, and so I was sitting there every evening in front of the altar, exactly how it was described in the book. So I was sitting there and I was chanting Hare Krishna. I was basically singing because I didn't know what chanting means. And now I know you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I didn't know at that time, so I was more singing. So it took me a very long time to chant one round. And somehow or other, I inquired. There was in the back of the book there was a phone number. So I called him up and I said, "Is there more books? It's really interesting knowledge. Can I get some more information about it?" Yeah. There's a Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was actually thinking, okay, so I could read that book before I go to India too. So I ordered the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that was in Switzerland, I guess. This was devotees in Switzerland. They had some bookstore. They sold these books, and they gave my number to a temple which is nearby my town. And I remember that day, and I can see it now, even in my mind, I can see it. They were calling me at home. I picked up the phone and I said, like, yes, here is Katharina from the Hare Krishna temple in Weimar, Germany. I was like, what? Who? Why are you calling me? Where do you get my number from? And I was like amazed and a bit awestruck, because I thought, like, why are they calling me? It felt like they wanted something from me, but my inner feeling said, like, well, it's very nice, And she said, we have a feast on Friday. We do a feast, we do kirtan, and we have prasadam. Why did you come? You know, you're interested to know more about Krishna. Why did you come? So I was a bit fearful because I didn't know. I mean, how did I come here? That was really weird. But I felt I should go, so I went, and that was the first time I met devotees. I went there to the temple in Weimar, which was a flat, and they had Gauri deities there, and there was a program going on, Friday feast they had. And I entered into the room, and I remember first saris and dhotis and tilak, and I was sitting on the floor, and I was like, what the heck is going on? What is going on here? So my mind was a bit disturbed by this whole scenery, but my heart was, the whole time was saying, yes, just sit down, just be here, don't. So my heart was saying yes, my mind was saying no the whole time. And then I had these wonderful exchanges with the devotees in Weimar. There were some devotees really, really intelligently catering me, intelligently taking me from where I was, and giving me all kinds of good instructions. And another thing I remember, this prasadam, and this particular first day in the temple, and I was eating prasadam, and I thought, did they put something into the food? Because I was flying high, I was really happy. I thought, like, what did they do? What is this? I mean, I had never felt that happiness. And I actually was with a good friend of mine there because I didn't want to go alone, so I took my best friend. So I asked him, how do you feel? And he's like, I'm flying. So I really felt like we were kind of hovering over the ground like this. Hovering out of the temple, and it rained. I remember that we were just sitting in the rain, and we looked at each other like, I was never that happy my whole life. So I didn't know where that happiness really come from at that time. So I went more often to the temple, and some swamis came, and you know, I went to Bhagavad Gita classes, and I had exchanges with devotees, and met them more often in a sequence, and that was really nice. I'm very thankful for that. And then the next phase in my Krishna consciousness was also very interesting because in the beginning I could really see, when I look back now, I could see how this was all arranged. You know, step by step I could build up my faith very naturally in Krishna consciousness. So I just had a regular job at that time. I was living in a flat together with a girlfriend, and we were just like living normal life, you could say. Not many goals, not many big goals, but in my heart I felt like, yeah, there was something more to life than this. And so yeah, I went to the temple more frequently, and got connected to the devotees. And they said one time, we are going to a festival. And I said like, oh, well, I will definitely come. Where is it? And so we went to the farm. In Germany there's a very famous farm, Nishinga Kshetra. Simhachalam now it's called. And so we went there. And at that time I told you I had this idea to go to India with the bike. So this was my story. I was still preparing in my mind, I'm going to go with the bike to India because I definitely want to experience this and I want to be in India. So we're going to this festival. That was in the end of the year, New Year's festival. There's always a Sankirtan festival going on. And these kirtans there were so raging. All the Sankirtan devotees from going out in the whole December distributing books, they're coming to this place and just to be there for 1 week and just do kirtan. So can you imagine that was a raging kirtan, what that was for me. I come to the temple room and there's like 50, 100 devotees chanting and just like going wild, like really happy after the marathon. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? First time I saw Lord Shingadev, and I saw like a real altar. And I went to the morning program, I remember that as well. Going to the morning program, and I didn't know much mantras at that time. I knew Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So I didn't even know all these, when you sing samsara prayers in the morning, when devotees sing the prayers to the Guru, I didn't even know them. So I was standing in the temple room for half an hour until the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra came, and I was like, yeah, I know that mantra, and then I could start chanting. And so that was my more deeper contact with devotees, more deeper contact with Krishna consciousness. And they asked me, why didn't you come with us to India? I mean, why do you want to go with the bike? You might get crazy when you go with the bike. And I was thinking, yeah, maybe that's true. because actually when I told this anyone else, they were all saying, wow, cool idea, you should do this, nice, wow. They were all impressed, but the devotees, they were not impressed. It was like, why you want to go with the bike? It's a waste of time. Just go with us. We go to the airplane, we go directly to Mayapur, we go to Vrindavan, we show you all the places. We go to Jagannath Puri. So I said like, yeah, okay, let's go. I'm going with you. So in my mind, I was always thinking, I go with them, and then when I come back, I will still go with I check these places out, and when I come back, I take my bike and I go back to India. That was my idea. And so we arrived in Vrindavan together with a group of devotees. We flew over to Vrindavan, and that was a beautiful experience. First time seeing a deeply rooted culture, and being in Krishna Balaram Mandir and seeing Prabhupada Samadhi, and hearing Bhagavatam every day regularly, and just having good association and going around to all these different places, seeing the Samadhis of these Goswamis and going to Radhakund. I was just like, I was so impressed by this beauty of this culture and of this knowledge and of this also lived knowledge, because they're living this there, right? And so I was very much impressed, and I lost my heart. Like sometimes devotees say, I lost my heart in Vrindavan. We have it on the t-shirt, so I also would say I lost my heart there, right there. So then we went to Mayapur. We came here to Mayapur. That was 2002, I guess. 2002, I think it was. And one vivid example I will never forget, and I'm so grateful that I could have that, because I was very new. I didn't even know how to put on a dhoti. I was actually wearing one, but it was just always falling down because I didn't know how to make a knot correctly. So like this new, like the Sika, like crazy, it's just new shaped up. I was there in the temple, and it was Gaur Arati. And we were leading the kirtan, and Dina Bandhu, actually from Vrindavan, he was leading the kirtan, I remember that. And he was singing so sweetly, chanting Hare Krishna. And I've seen all these devotees from all these different countries, from Russia, from China, from America, and all these different devotees together in this temple room in front of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna, and I was so happy. And I was like, I've never seen anything more like this, more beautiful than this. So I was really touched by this congregational chanting of Hare Krishna. Everyone can do it. Everyone can join in. If you're Indian, if you're American, if you're German, it doesn't really matter. Just let's come together in front of the Lord and we sing His holy names. And that really made also an impression on me. I'm so grateful to Dina Bandhu that he was, that I could take part in this kirtan, because it opened another part of my heart. It opened another part. And then we went to Jagannath Puri, and so that was my first trip. I had a good association, long association with the devotees, which made me strong and made my faith strong. And and then it was time to, at one point it was time to, it was the question, do you want to get further? Do you want to go further into this? And I definitely said yes. So I took initiation, and that was an important part in my life. So I took initiation. And then when we moved back to Germany, I was living in the temple for many years. I was serving in temple in Vienna, serving in Germany, in Berlin, going out, book distribution with the van. That was blissful years. Just simple living, high thinking, going out in the street, meeting people, handing out books from Prabhupada, always with a smile. And that was a really, really nice experience. I will never forget. Yeah, so I mentioned that my mother already passed away before I came in contact with Krishna Consciousness, and so when it was time for me it was clear that I should actually move into the temple. It was quite easy for me because that was the only person which could have kind of hold me back. But she already passed on, so I didn't ask anyone really. I just did it. I just joined into the temple, and I was living there. And from time to time, my sister was calling me up, and my father was writing me an email and asking, "Where are you? What are you doing?" I didn't really tell anyone. I just joined. I just went to the temple. And but then, after some time, of course, you go home, you see your parents. They were asking questions. I was going back to see my sister and my father, and my grandmother, and they were asking questions. So I started to introduce the idea of Krishna consciousness to them with books. And also I remember one time I was cooking with my sister together, and I showed her how to cook vegetarian food and how to offer everything. And she found it very interesting, but maybe I was too much a little bit in the beginning, all a little too, maybe too much. But like this, they were not against it, but they didn't really understand what I was doing in the beginning. And of course this changed. Now my sister, she knows what I'm doing, and she likes it very much. And also my father, he's not much of a philosopher, or it's not much of a going deep into philosophy, but he knows that I'm happy, and that's, I think, the most important thing for them to know, that they can see it, they can see the result of it. Whenever I go there, they look at me and it's like, well, you're happy, what's without having a beer or without having some cigarettes, something in Germany. The Germans like to smoke and drink. You use and eat meat a lot. Without this, you're still happy. How is this possible? So just by example, they can see that it's somehow working. Yeah, okay. And then after some years in Krishna consciousness, I decided to move outside the temple and I wanted to get some job and money. I was thinking about family life, and I all did that, and that was very, very good. And but in some ways, being in touch with the material world out there affects our own consciousness. So being out there in the world and having so much association and not so much association with the devotees anymore kind of affected my spiritual progress, I could say, and which I think is also an important part in my life. I would not like to miss that. I mean, maybe it's better not to have that, but if I look back from now, it was good, because at one point I was really desperate to know more and to really dive again deeply into Krishna consciousness. And I remember specifically that it was like a wake-up call again, when I was just looking something up on the internet, and I found this one kirtan of Indra, mystical kirtan, I think it is called. And I listened to it, and while I was listening to it, I for the first time in my life, I kind of knew from the heart, it touched my heart, I knew what kirtan is. He was just crying his heart out to Radha and Krishna in his kirtans. You could hear it in his voice. I've never heard any kirtan like this before. So he really kindled some interest in my heart again, and he really inspired me just by his example. He inspired me so much to inquire more and again more about Krishna consciousness in a more deeper sense. And I remember going back to India again and going to Vrindavan and being there, the place I love so much, being there and going deep and becoming more serious about the essence of our movement, about the essence of what we are supposed to be in Krishna consciousness. Devotees were chanting purely the names of Krishna for his pleasure, for their pleasure. And that really inspires me. And then I have to say, I'm still in that fire. I'm running on that fire now, because I've seen it. I've seen this. I've seen this and experienced this, what that means. When the longing for Krishna consciousness is so deep. And so I'm forever grateful to Andrew Prabhu that he, by his example, showed us how to really go deep in Krishna consciousness, and I'm just always will be grateful for this. And so this carries me on now in my Krishna consciousness. This is a fire which is burning, and so I'm following that my own desire, and I'm following my own burning heart in my own way in Krishna consciousness, but only because I could see his example, and then also by his example, I could understand, or by his example, how he was living, I could also understand who Prabhupada is. I saw Prabhupada in a completely different light, because I enjoyed just following Prabhupada so nicely. And for me, it's a very beautiful example. So also, I got connected in a more deeper sense with Srila Prabhupada. I'm reading his books now in a different way. I'm seeing different quotes in different light, and I got inspired so much. So I'm got pretty much connected again to Krishna consciousness very, very powerfully. So thankful for that forever. So yeah, I can sum it up and say that I'm really, really happy. I'm very grateful for all the gifts I've got in Krishna consciousness. Because if I look at me now, and of course there's always changes in life, but if I see that person who was not in contact with Krishna consciousness, and the person I am now, there's a vast difference, because the person who was not in contact with Krishna consciousness didn't know anything about this world and didn't know any destination, nor did I know where I should go, what is life is all about, and how I can use my life properly to make sense out of it. So I was just roaming around. I was just floating like a piece of wood. I was just floating around in the ocean of material existence, no destination. So you just float forever there. And I'm so happy and grateful that I was given the chance, and I was touched with this knowledge, so I can finally realize what is my destination and what is my real path. What is my life all about? Who am I in the essence, and what I'm supposed to do with this life. If I would not have this, I think I would not be that person I'm now. Happy and open to changes and open to the future, and I'm looking forward to build up on what I know, all the knowledge I have, and support also the movement of Srila Prabhupada, because if it can change me, it can also change others. So I'm very much inspired wherever I can help somewhere and be of any support to help and support this movement to grow to all corners of the world, because that's the idea of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to give everyone contact to this, so they can finally realize that they're already happy and already inside very much Krishna conscious, and that they're eternally connected to the Lord. And then when they move along the path, that they realize who they really, really are in connection with Krishna, and come to their original position and be forever happy. And that's what we're all looking for, being happy. So, thank you very much for everything, and Jai Srila Prabhupada, and Hare Krishna.